Well, here we are, another week, another dollar. Wait, that's not how it works. No, wait. This is United Opposition with Scott and Marshall coming to you free of charge, but you can change that anytime you want. Just email us. We'll give you more information about that. But today we're talking about, because good old capitalism, right, Marshall?
Right.
Today we're talking about Harvard. What's happening at the prestigious school? Here we go.
All right.
There we are. Yes. We can, we'll figure out some way of, we'll see if we can put on text how you can send us money. PayPal. Yeah, there we go. We'll figure it out by our next show, so you can send us money. We'll just throw a little logo up there and you guys can just send it to us. Is that okay, Marshall? Is it okay that we try to ask for money, or is that too capitalist?
Well, no. I mean, there's nothing capitalist about it. If you own and control the means of production, the worker has a right to demand their wages. So yeah, So there you go. You're allowed to ask for money. You're allowed to be paid for your work.
All right.
The premise of socialism, believe it or not. Who should get the money? It should be the workers who are doing the labor. So there you go. The people who are working. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's a different argument. That's a different discussion that we've had plenty of times in the past. We're going off of something that sparked a little bit online, sparked a discussion with you and I. Well, kind of behind the scenes. And just kind of to lead us to this question we're talking about, you posted something about Harvard, about this letter. I guess some more has happened since then, but this initial letter from 5 days ago that basically where Harvard was losing its ability to have foreign exchange students at the school. And you had posted something. You care saying what you had posted about that?
Well, I think that the federal government is interfering with academic freedom. The federal government should really have little to nothing to do with universities in general. I think the only exception to that would be funding research if there is something of interest to the people at large. Generally, though, I'm skeptical of that. I really would like to see a clear division between the government and our academic apparatus. I want the academic apparatus to function freely, to have academic freedom, and to not be bound to the federal government for better or for worse. And that means that schools should have the right to enroll and admit whoever they choose to admit, provided they are following the anti-discrimination rules and laws that we have in this country to ensure equal access to education for all people. And to me, that should be the end of it. Universities should be allowed to manage themselves. You have to protect academic freedom. And the government should have as little as possible to do with private universities.
So are you saying that the universities should then be in charge of vetting and handling everything to do with bringing in foreign students? That the government has no say? Like the schools should be doing, the university should be doing the visas and should be checking the passports and all that kind of stuff? Or does the government have say in who comes into the country to go to the school?
Well, the government has that say.
Okay.
But assuming that the student is clear, that they're not, on a no-fly list or something, that they're not, some sort of a criminal, and they're actually coming here with the intent to learn and be educated, then it's the university's business. So yes, I think that universities, especially private universities, should be allowed to admit pretty much whoever the hell they want,
Okay. So, does government, is that a right? Is it a right for foreign students to be able to be educated in the United States? Is that a right?
It's not a right for the individual student per se, but it is a right of the university to admit who they choose.
Yes. So when someone comes in, are there policies and are there regulations that somebody coming in from getting a student visa? Are there requirements for getting a student visa, and are there requirements for maintaining a student visa?
I'm not certain what those requirements would be, but if those would be like, follow the law, yes, fine, so be it.
Okay, cool. So I did research it. I did look it up. I did look at the what the paperwork says that they were, and I'm trying to remember the exact name of it. There's a the student visa, the serve or the SVR or whatever it is. I can't remember the name of that now. But I read through that. And I read through the pertaining and there are regulations. There are regulations that the students have to follow, and there are regulations that the school has to follow in order to process the students. And both of them have to follow certain regulations. And it clearly states on there that if they don't follow those regulations, then they either lose their student status or they lose or the school, either the individual loses their student status or the school loses their ability to have foreign students if they refuse to follow the policies for having foreign students. Does that sound reasonable?
Not if it's a private university. If it's a private university, the person has no restrictions on entry to the country. The university can enroll who they choose. It's a private university. If it's a public university, we can argue.
That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about.
The federal government runs too many universities. Universities are state-run.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about them running the university. I'm talking about.
I'm telling you there's a difference.
There is a difference. So
You're a libertarian, aren't you? Why is the government getting involved in private affairs?
They're not. What I'm talking about.
You're becoming a big government guy all of a sudden. Go ahead.
I'm still only talking about a foreign national being in the United States and the requirements for the person coming in as a student visa. That the student.
Okay, I acknowledge that the requirements exist. Yes. What's your point?
My point is part of that system is that the school has to also follow the same regulations in order to have foreign students in there.
What's the point of all this?
The point is they violated those rules.
And what rule did they violate? You read this, so what rule did they violate?
So the student is required to maintain academic full course. They're required to maintain full course on their studies. They are not allowed to have a job out. There's certain exceptions, but they're basically not allowed to have a job off of campus to be making money on there. They got to be a full-time student. They have to follow the laws, federal, state, and local laws, and they have to follow the rule books of the school. They have to follow the guidelines and the rules set by the school. So the school has to enforce its rules with all of their students. And if the students are violating school rules, they can lose their visa. So part of that process, so part of that process is the school is required to report to the government students, the disciplinary actions of the students. If a student has been disciplined by the school, that is required to be told to the government for the student to maintain their visa. And Harvard refused. That word refused is in your Reuters link that you put about this, about that. It wasn't missed. It wasn't, we couldn't comply. They refused to tell the government if there was any disciplinary action against any of these foreign national students who had a student visa, violating the rules for having students, foreign students on their campus. That is what happened. They violated the rules. They refused to report whether or not the students had violated any campus rules. They refused to report if there was any disciplinary.
Okay, you said it 3 times now. Okay.
Well, I want to make sure you understand that was.
I understand it. What I'm going to tell you is it's a private university.
But that's part that they agreed to be.
And that rule should change. But I find it very interesting that if this is so cut and dry, the courts have blocked what there is a block against the Trump administration trying to do what they're trying to do, because what they're doing is they're trying to interfere with academic freedoms. There is a policy that exists called, it is a political idea, it's also a religious idea called Zionism. And there are people who have opinions about Zionism. Some support it, some are adamantly against it. There is a war that is being fought in the Middle East, in Gaza, Israel, and so on, the surrounding areas, the whole region, that is grounded and rooted in the conflict between Zionism and the people who are resisting Zionism. Now, I don't want to get into the weeds of that, but the bottom line is people have opinions. Some are in favor, some are opposed. Academic freedom means a student is allowed to express their opinion one way or the other, whether you like it or not, without harassment or accusations, well, you're being anti-Semitic because you're opposed to Zionism, whatever.
Doesn't matter.
The Trump administration is inserting itself
But that's not
deliberately
what's happening.
into Harvard precisely because they don't like what some of the students have to say. And they are rounding up people and they are expelling them from the country. And now they're going to damage and destroy the educational career path of a wide range of foreign students who have done nothing wrong, who have completely complied with the rules because they have a beef with Harvard University. It's a private university. They should have nothing to do with it.
You've got it all backwards.
Okay.
You've got it all backwards.
Okay.
If a student, so here's the thing, if a student violates the rules for having a student visa, if a foreign national violates the rules for having a student visa, they individually will be removed. Agreed?
That should be the rule.
That
now,
is the
personally. I think if the kid gets a job off campus, I think it's ridiculous.
It doesn't matter. It's still the rules.
Some of the rules are frankly ridiculous.
Okay, well then change them. That's a different topic.
We probably will, but go ahead.
But that's a different topic. If they violate the rules of their student visa, they should be removed. Do you agree?
No.
If they violate, it depends
on the severity of the violation. Look, if the students
no. Hold on. It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
Hold on a second. Your grading of, well, if it's more important than this or this rule, that has to do with making the laws. Take that up with Congress. Change the laws. Right now, these are what the laws and the regulations say. So according to the rules and the regulations, if a student violates the terms of their agreement that they agreed before they came here, they agreed to these terms. If they violate these terms, that individual student should be removed from the country. If they violate those terms, those are the terms of their student visa. If they violate,
I would bet you there's language that moderates that as well.
I'm sure, but effective. Yeah, because but basically, the idea is if you violate
the rule in a substantial or significant way, deliberately and knowingly. Okay, so technically.
Good.
Your black and white interpretation, if a foreign student returns their library book a day late, which would be against school policy, if they return their library book a day late, they can be kicked out of the country. That's ridiculous. Do you not agree that's ridiculous? You said that's not ridiculous?
I'm saying following the rules is not ridiculous. I'm saying if there's a problem with how stringent the rules are, then let's change the rules. But I don't believe following the rules is ridiculous. So that's fine.
Okay, so
if they are that crazy, if the rules are actually that bad, then okay. If it's return a library book, if you want to go that ridiculous and returning a library book, you don't. Then let's change
ad absurdum. I'm reducing your position to a point of absurdity to illustrate that your position is absurd.
No, you're not my position. My position is follow the law. You're pointing to that the law is bad. Okay, well that's a different argument. That's not the argument I'm having right now. If we want to change those rules and those regulations, that's a different argument.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the law needs to be applied.
Changed. Yes.
No, it needs to be applied intelligently.
No, the law needs to be.
And just because a student has something to say that you do not like does not mean you start pulling plugs all over the place and tearing up wires and disconnecting.
So I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue because the government isn't pulling up the student's education. Harvard is. Because the government was looking for individual students who violated to take out.
Why are they doing that? Why are they doing that?
Because they're in charge of who comes into the country. And if a person came into.
Why is the government doing that? At no point in recent U.S. history has the government done this. Why is our government doing it now all of a sudden? It's because our government is xenophobic.
That's because our government has been focused on immigration, and that's what it's been doing. This is just
because our government is a racist institution. It is a racist regime.
No,
it's racist.
Let me get back to logic and argument and facts. All right,
you go ahead. But I'm telling you, this is what's going on because it is absurd for the government out of the blue to suddenly crack down on private universities. Conservatives have a big problem with universities, and Harvard in particular. And so here they are persecuting this university, and they're persecuting people who have done nothing wrong.
And I'm going to get to that. Because Welcome to the
And you
club.
love it. That's what's crazy. I thought you were a libertarian. You can't call yourself a libertarian or an American or a lover of the law or the Constitution
you
if
cannot
this is
make
your
me-
perspective, because this is fascist.
It
This
is not.
evil. This
No,
is
that's your
evil.
perspective.
This is destructive to our country and to people who have done nothing wrong.
That is your perspective, and I believe that you are incorrect in your perspective, just as you believe as I'm incorrect in my perspective. Can you accept that? Can you accept
what? That you have a different perspective? Yes, and it's morally wrong.
It is not it is not morally wrong from my perspective.
Why? Because it's the law. Slavery was legal. Are you cool with slavery too?
Sure, that's where you want to go. That's how you want to take the argument. That's how you want to take the argument. That's
done here. If you're cool with slavery, then we're done.
Of course not. It's
okay.
I'm
Use
laughing.
your head, Scott. Use your head. Quit.
You're the one.
The Kool-Aid.
Look at you. You're the one who is going nuts and emotional. I'm trying to have a rational.
Because you're trying to say it's all about the letter of the law and this and this and this. No, it's not, Scott. See between the lines. See what's really going on. They are weaponizing the law because they are a racist regime. This is how it starts. You find a vulnerable community that people don't care about, you attack them. And then once that vulnerable community is destroyed, you then turn to the next, and that will be us. That will be you. And when you break down these barriers, what's to say that a liberal president won't come in? And now that these barriers have been broken down, they won't come for you. These rules, these judges, the idea that you use judgment when applying the law to people and the school rules to people is entirely to protect both you and me. And you are gleeful that these things are being destroyed. I am horrified by it.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Go ahead.
Glad you brought that up, because we are currently operating within the window that was created by previous administrations.
So,
we are operating.
What window is this? Tell me about this window.
The window of stepping in. And like you're saying, if you want to talk about stepping in and government stepping in, I would love, gosh,
any of them should be doing it. What's your point here? Come on, Scott, get to the point.
Yeah. I'm saying that you didn't care until it affected you. I question your.
This is the first time in American history that this has happened that I am aware of.
Of course, that you're aware of. You weren't aware of it and you didn't care before.
Okay, and if it happened before, I condemn that too. I don't care who the president was.
When Christian colleges could not had to start refusing federal funds because they were being forced to hire people that they were spiritually that they could not support. They had Christian schools 20,
Why
30
are Christian schools getting federal funds to begin with? I asked the same question of Harvard. Why is Harvard getting federal funds?
Oh, good. So we're in agreement. Harvard shouldn't get federal funds.
Precisely. Again, academia should be separate from the government. If the government wishes to contract with the university to perform a study or research, fine. If they want to do a grant, fine. But that should not impede the academic freedom of the university. The government should not dictate anything to the university unless it is specifically connected to how that grant money is spent. Otherwise, I would prefer none, zero.
How is the government dictating that right now to Harvard?
Because they're telling Harvard they can't enroll who they choose to enroll. And they are telling Harvard they have to send their students elsewhere because Trump has a beef with Harvard.
No, that they did not say that. That is not what's happening.
Why has a judge blocked Trump's order to Harvard?
No, judges can block anything.
Yeah, well, that's what they're doing. They block.
Judges can block anything. They have their own motivations for anything. Just because a judge says, nope, I'm going to stand against this.
That's right. Judges can. But why? Okay.
It doesn't mean that it automatically is like that. That judge could be wrong too. But what I'm getting,
but let's take it to the Supreme Court because I think Trump's going to lose.
That's fine.
With his own court, no less. That's hilarious.
But what's happening, the only threat that the government has against Harvard is for Harvard to lose its federal funding. That's the only threat the government has.
Harvard doesn't need another dime from anyone. It's got billions of dollars.
I agree. I agree.
All right.
So-
So what's next then?
But what
They
I'm
should
saying,
be allowed to admit who they want to admit without the government poking
and-
around.
and they can admit whoever they want. They must follow when it comes to foreign nationals with student visas in our country. Both the student and the school have to follow the rules. That's simple. And if Harvard had followed the rules, if Harvard had followed the rules when the administration was asking about individuals, are there any individuals who have violated their terms? Harvard could have said these individuals have violated, and only those individuals would have had prosecution against them.
So why didn't Harvard satisfy this requirement? Why is all of a sudden Harvard didn't do what the government wanted Harvard to do? Has Harvard always been doing this, or never been doing this?
No, I don't know if anybody's asked them to show that.
So then why is the government suddenly out of the blue asking them to show that? Are they doing that to other colleges or only Harvard? The only case I see, it's only Harvard. That indicates to me there's a personal issue here between the Trump administration and the university, and that's ridiculous.
And maybe and so it would be better once because they said they're going to start going into New York and Columbia and all the other ones. They've already that's where they're going. So that makes it better then, right? Because now they're not targeting just Harvard. That makes it better.
They should leave the private universities in particular alone. They're private universities.
We're not attacking private.
If you're a Christian university, you admit you want to admit you do what you want to do. You're a private secular university, same, likewise, whatever.
Yeah.
If it's a public university,
and doing that, you
by the
use
state.
federal funds.
Again, the federal government have nothing to do.
The cost of it is refusing.
Where in the Constitution does it say the federal government should interfere with academic freedom?
They're not interfering with academic freedom.
Yes, they are.
Not. They are not.
By doing, but yeah, if you expel a student because they write an essay that is opposed to Zionism,
that is not
why the university of anti-Semitism, which is what the letter says. They are accusing. Read the letter that was sent to Harvard University. It specifically cites anti-Semitism. Okay, it is about race and racism.
It's citing the violence, it's citing the threats, it's citing the things. Say, okay, are there students who
when you have academic freedom
violating these rules? Tell us, because we have a right.
Nobody has violated a rule at Harvard that I know of.
You don't know that because Harvard refused to let anybody know.
And that's because it's Harvard's business. It's Harvard's
business. It is the government's business when it comes to foreign students.
Government stays out of academia.
Government is about immigration. They're not. It's not about academia. It's about immigration.
No,
it's about are the students violating.
That's the lie that they're selling you. That's what I've been trying to tell you for all 23 minutes here. It is not about. It's not about immigration. It's about academic freedom. It's about contrary
conspiracy theory.
It's about this idea that young people are not critical of the government and the status quo, which young people always do. Trump wants to stifle dissent. This is part of a pattern of behavior where he attacks enemies that are real or perceived. He is weaponizing the federal government to attack enemies wherever he finds them. This is the hallmark of totalitarianism. This is a warning. This is not appropriate. It should not be happening at all.
I don't see it.
You're not going to see it until it's too late then, man. You're going to get caught up in it. This is bad, Scott. This is real bad. If this were happening on the left, I would want you to warn me too. Because it happens on the left just as much as it happens on the right, and it's always bad. It's bad, Scott.
You need it to be bad.
No, I need it to be at least like it was a couple years ago, which, by the way, was still bad, but not this bad, which is extra bad, okay? I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man. The Trump administration has he's killed a lot of sacred cows. And now that those sacred cows are dead, when a Democrat comes in, Katie, bar the door. We're going to have this conversation, but in reverse. But I hope I see it your way more. I hope that I have the clarity of mind to remain morally and ethically consistent on my opposition to government doing tyrannical authoritarian things, to abuse of power. Trump is abusing his power. He is doing things he should not be doing. That is why courts, time and time again, are ruling against him, including the United States Supreme Court. Man, we deported 50 U.S. citizens to El Salvador. We sent people from Vietnam and Southeast Asia to South Sudan. What the heck are we doing that for? You send people to where they came from, not South Sudan? Really? Why are we doing that?
Your whole argument was that we couldn't send that guy back to where he came from. Now you're saying we should have?
I'm saying that if a person is here illegal and you're going to deport them, you deport them to where they came from their home country.
Mm-hmm.
You don't deport them to a random country because that random country said, oh, yeah, we'll take them. What the heck? At what point that's even a topic of conversation? That's ridiculous. That's, again, we should be ashamed and alarmed by that.
Why did their country not take them back?
I don't know why. I don't know.
Why can't we just leave them?
I'm sorry, what?
Why can't we just leave them off in their own country?
If their country won't take them back, or if they require asylum because their life is in danger, there are rules about this, right? At the end of the day, unless this person is some sort of a hardened criminal, and I'm talking about a real crime, this whole idea, well, they crossed the border, that's a crime. Okay, but you know what? You know how many people commit crimes every day just by driving home from work? Don't miss me with that crap, okay? I'm talking real crimes. They commit a real crime. Put them in a prison.
Gotcha.
Put them in a prison.
What real crime is. I get it. Because Marshall's so smart. His intelligentsia is so smart. He gets to decide what real crime is.
You misused the word intelligentsia for one.
I know. Yeah. But I was referring to you and everybody else.
Decide that, right? But you commit a felony.
You are so smart, Marshall. You are so smart. You're so smarter than everybody. You should be able to decide what real crime is. You and people like you should
I'm not advocating that I do that. I'm just saying that we have courts.
You literally are saying, no, Scott, real crime. As in you're deciding what real crime is. That's the main difference.
Okay,
that's the main difference. I don't think I'm smarter than you. And I don't think that's what I should.
Well, you do, but that's neither here nor there. What I'm telling you is there's a difference between a person who comes to this country as a minor child brought in by their adults.
What you want to do. I don't think I should decide for you. You believe you should be able to decide for others. I don't believe I should be able to decide for you.
What have I decided for others today?
What a real crime is.
And what is a real crime? And by my definition.
You tell me because you're the one who said.
I have not defined it now, have I? I have not said what it is. What I have told you is that
you clearly said that. Let's say you clearly said that speeding is not a real crime. You clearly said that. What else? What's crossing? You referred to those as not real crimes. You said crimes, not those things. That's what that means. You referred to those as not.
I'm done, dude. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. You're putting words in my mouth. Let me finish. If you keep interrupting me, I'm going to stop talking, and we're going to do 30 minutes of Scott Garcia.
I've done that. It wasn't easy.
I know. You have to listen to yourself. It's got to be hard. I'm joking, but that was too good to pass up.
Mm-hmm. I took it as a joke. It's fine.
It was a joke. All right, dude, look. Courts decide what's criminal and what's not, right? We have the letter of the law. Well, the jury is part of a court. Okay, it's part of the court. Didn't we have the same government class? Didn't we have Mr. Schlegel together? You had him. We had the same teacher.
I had Mr. Love.
That's right, Mr. Love. That's right. See, we had the same teacher. You know what the part of civil court are. Anyway, look, if a kid is brought into this country as a child, they're 2, they're 3 years old, they can't commit a crime. They cannot commit a crime. And you don't take a person who was raised in this country and dip them to another country because their parents did the crime of illegal immigration. I'm not saying that illegal immigration should be allowed or that we should give people a free pass or that there should not be a sanction. What I am saying is that we have to apply the rules intelligently. We have, there's nuance, there's situations and stuff. When we see a person who has committed a serious crime, like a violent crime, where they've broken the law in some major way, and I am speaking vaguely because sometimes a misdemeanor can be what I would consider a major way, like, you assault a person or something. We don't want you here in this country. You need to go back to where you came from, and we deport them to where they came from. But if a person is just here and they're working and they're trying and they're going to school, then we need to be reasonable. We want these people here because they are contributing. We want them to contribute, even if the circumstances of their arrival in this country are not what they are supposed to be. All right, we can sanction that. We can work with that. But that's what we do as a country. I want us to be a compassionate nation. You are a Christian, Scott. I believe in my heart of hearts that you believe in compassion for all persons. Mercy and grace and compassion.
We as individuals, hold on, I'm going to answer to that. We as individuals are called to be compassionate. The government is not called to be compassionate. Biblically, it says the government does not carry a sword for no reason. And Jesus himself said, render to Caesar what is Caesar's and render to God what is God's. So don't put God's command for us to be compassionate into some sort of law form. That's not what. That's not what.
Well, then, as a secularist, then I am going to advocate for compassionate government. Okay, fine. We'll keep the Christianity out of the government. I get it. No problem. Let's have compassionate government then that is absolutely secular, has nothing to do with Christianity. Perfect. No problem. I'm glad we've come to that distinction.
Yep.
But I want a compassionate government that, uses intelligence and understands nuance to apply the rules fairly and justly. Look, if there's a student at Harvard and they're making actual terrorist threats and they're trying to start riots or do something violent or bad, yes, expel them.
Good. Now, hold on. Good. We're in agreement. How does the government know that if the school won't report it?
If the government doesn't hear about it, if the government relies on the school to report it, it's not going to know it.
But the rules are the school is supposed to report it. If the school hears about it, they're supposed to report it. That's reasonable. Isn't it reasonable? If the school hears about a terrorist threat, doesn't that seem reasonable they should report it?
It depends on if the school understands it as a terrorist threat or as freedom of speech.
And that's easily measured by the school's own rules. And if the student violates the school's own rules, so that as all that happened, they said, Harvard, tell us who violated the rules. Harvard said no. They said, then you've lost your ability. All the other students weren't kicked out of Harvard by the government. All the students were kicked out by Harvard. Because Harvard,
they were not kicked out by Harvard.
They were kicked out.
They've been told by the federal government to go somewhere else. They can't go to Harvard.
Harvard chose to not follow the rules, and Harvard lost its ability to do that.
Okay,
by its choice, by Harvard's choice to not report, they jeopardize their students.
If Harvard doesn't report, then the default assumption should be there is nothing to report. Schools, colleges, and universities have an academic process whereby they evaluate when a student these are the rules, not the law. If you violate the law, there's campus police and the justice system.
Yes.
That kicks in. But if you violate a school rule, an academic rule, there is a review board in every single college that makes determination of rules.
And there is a law that school is required to report that for foreign nationals. There is a law that says the school is required to do that, and Harvard refused. Harvard chose to lose their ability.
Harvard is saying the answer is no. There are no students who have violated.
They refuse to present. That's different than saying no. They refuse to present. They violated the rules. It's as simple as that. Harvard chose this action. It's that simple.
Okay, so why are all these other universities now coming under, the similar?
Well, then
why just Harvard? Why just Harvard though? That's kind of
Harvard. It's the first one. Well, it's not just Harvard. They're continuing. That was the first one.
Why are they the first one? Why does the government have to go one at a time, like the angel of death to each university? Why not just say to all universities that on this day?
Maybe Doge fired everybody who would be doing that. Now they got to do a little bit at a time instead of all at once. I don't know. There's a lot of ways to do it. But what I'm trying to say is This is not, I don't believe this is what you're saying it is. And I think that what happened.
What do you think I'm saying it is?
You seem to be saying that that government wants to become a dictator. This administration wants to become a dictatorship, and they're starting at the schools and they're moving forward. And this is all part of a huge plan to create a bold new empire and replace the republic. Like every movie.
Well, no, I think they're actually pretty far along. They haven't started at the schools; they started elsewhere. But this. But
you believe that's the end game, and I don't.
Yeah, I think the destruction of our republic is the goal.
And if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah, well, tell that to the Trump administration, because they're hammering a lot.
You're the hammer. Everything looks like a nail to you.
Yeah, I am all about
everything that happens,
nuanced and individual. Okay. I honestly believe, Scott, that this is bad in a whole lot of ways. And if you're not seeing any of that, you're drinking the Kool-Aid, man, and you're going to be in trouble.
I think you've already drank.
3 years from now, there's not going to be any Trump supporters. It's just like when Nixon was elected; he won in a landslide.
I don't know. I mean,
3 years into his election, you couldn't find anybody who voted for him.
We are 3 days from June, and your prediction that Trump would be gone by now is nowhere near close to what your prediction was.
I didn't say he would necessarily be gone by now, but I did.
You absolutely did. We'll pull that.
Well, okay. So
you're becoming less, and your predictions are becoming less and less believable.
All right. Well, you don't have to believe me. I've issued a warning here, and you don't have to believe me. And that's fine, but the consequences will be yours to bear.
Just be careful when you issue those warnings. When you issued these warnings, you were declaring me to be an evil person.
Well, Scott, if you side with evil, what are you?
No. I'm not siding with evil. I'm siding with what you think is evil. So now you are saying publicly, you evil people, based only on your opinion and your view of it.
And you don't think this administration is evil?
Have I called you evil? I
don't know. I don't think that you have. And I don't believe that you're evil. But I'm telling you, evil is evil.
I think I will.
If you side with an administration that is racist, that is killing innocent people, that engages in all of these things that the Trump administration is starting to do, then what do we call that?
You are seeing what you want to see because you already have a preconceived idea.
Do you believe the Obama administration was evil?
No.
Do you believe the Biden administration did anything evil?
Well, I think there's a difference between doing something evil and being evil.
You think they were evil? Because I'll tell you my answer. The answer is yes, yes, and yes. They all did evil things. They all did things that to me were morally and ethically unacceptable. That they all fell short of what I believe our republic is supposed to be and do. And
so what does that mean? Be careful. What does that mean? If somebody does something evil, what does that make them?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
If somebody has ever done something evil, does that make them evil?
Well, it makes them a sinner, right? Like we all are. But if you continue to persist, once you understand that, hey, that's bad, that's wrong, you shouldn't be doing that, and you continue to persist in that, now it's a choice.
Okay.
So there's a difference between, hey, I'm deceived, I'm falling into it, or I'm afraid. And I think there are a lot of people who've done things. I'm afraid, so I'm going to support this because it's the lesser of two evils or whatever. Yes. And I think that's how a lot of people are right now. But I'm going to tell you, the mask is starting to fall off. And when the mask falls off, if you continue to support, evil, then you are going to be lumped in with it. Nobody cares about the charity that the Nazis did. Nobody cares.
Please be careful when you're calling people evil based on only your perspective. Please, Marshall.
Well, all right, but
all right,
man.
Please. There's the possibility that you're wrong.
Maybe, but
yes,
I don't. Yeah, maybe.
So for the sake of that possibility, please don't lump people into being evil simply because they disagree with you.
Well, yeah, you're not evil for disagreeing with me. You're evil for doing and supporting evil things.
But we disagree on what. No, we disagree. I don't believe that what they're doing is evil. So we
And
disagree.
I do. So that's a
And
problem, right? But
You're calling people.
your
Well,
side is in the driver's seat, so we'll just wait and see.
Okay.
We'll wait and see, Scott.
I'm just asking you to be calm, and I'm asking you to be. I'm asking you to be reasonable.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the time for being calm and reasonable is past. But
It's never
whatever.
passed.
No. At some point, you have to act. This whole, oh, you're overreacting. You'll tell people that all the way to the gas chambers, man. It's ridiculous. No. At some point, you have to say, this is enough. Enough is enough.
Well, we'll have to continue this conversation another time. We are already like way over.
Way over, I know.
But you're not evil, Marshall. You're still my friend.
You're not evil either, Scott. You're still my friend. But I've got to tell you and all the viewers, I'm kind of done talking about this. I am like way done with talking about Trump and politics. I am so beyond it at this point. I am tired of it.
We can't stop talking about it. We can't be done. Otherwise, we failed.
Well, then I don't know. Call it a fail then, because I go from 0 to 60 so quick anymore, Scott. I don't have the patience to do this. I just don't. I'm so done, and so many people out there are so done. And it's going to boil over. I expected it would start to boil over by about now. Maybe we'll wait for the tariff impacts to kick in. Maybe it will never boil over. I will be shocked if it doesn't. I'll be wrong, and you can call me wrong, fine. But I just think it's ominous, man.
Well, when we need to have this discussion again. Similar, not this particular one. I think we're good, but I do want to end the show for today, knowing that I believe that you and I can discuss these things, and we can stand as an example to others to be able to discuss these things.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
All right. Yeah. This has been United Opposition with Scott and Marshall. A really good discussion here, and we look forward to seeing you guys hopefully next week, same time, same place. Until then, God bless you, Marshall.
God bless you too, Scott.